Good morning. You're watching DD India and I'm Preeti presenting this edition of News on the Hour, a show which we get for you every morning to make sure that you keep yourself abreast with everything that's making it to the headlines. We'll get you national updates, international updates, also updates from the world of business, sports, enough to keep you engaged for the next 1 hour. First, the top stories. One of the most important meetings under G20 Finance Track gets underway in Guwahati as more than 100 delegates start deliberations on sustainable finance. Mechanism for mobilization of resources for fighting climate change tops the agenda. Today is the last day of the Education Working Group meeting in Chennai. G20 Employment Working Group meeting also to start in Jodhpur. US Central Bank raises rates by quarter percentage point after a year of larger hikes, sweeping aside in a statement the long list of reasons from war to the pandemic. Fed says more evidence of ebbing inflation needed. Russia continues with deadly strikes in Ukraine and has now taken in radar an apartment building in the eastern city of Kramatorsk. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says situation on the front lines in eastern Ukraine has become tougher as Russian forces step up offensive. Sri Lanka raises price of octane 92 petrol by 30 rupees from 370 to 400 rupees per litre with effect from today. Sri Lanka faces inflationary pressure over last 9 months. India thrashes New Zealand by 168 runs to clinch the three-match T20 series 2-1. Shubman Gill hits maiden T20 century, registers highest individual score by an Indian in the format. Unbeaten Indian women's cricket team takes on host South Africa in the final of the Tri-Series at the Buffalo Park today. With the Women's T20 World Cup days away, India looks forward to conclude the final leg of their preparations with a win. Let's begin. One of the most important meetings under G20 Finance Track, the two-day-long first Sustainable Financial Working Group meeting got underway in Guwahati. More than 100 delegates have started deliberations on sustainable finance. Mechanism for mobilization of resources for fighting climate change tops the agenda.
This first Sustainable Finance Working Group meeting is very, very important for the people of the globe. And with the coordinated efforts, with the public-private participation, with the proper policy, with proper roadmap, definitely out of this today's event, we are going to get a very, very important, way out to meet the sustainable development goals, agenda, and also the objective of the Paris Agreement.
Our correspondent Ravi Dhiman gets us this exclusive report from Lokpriya Gopinath Bordoloi International Airport, Guwahati, where G20 delegates are arriving and are being welcomed by traditional dance and music of Assam by performers there.
The traditional dance of Assam with many artists performing this dance at the International Airport of Guwahati, coupled with the musicians who are playing their mridangs and enthralling all the delegates here. We are at the International Airport of Guwahati and this is the scene at around midnight here. All these artists have been here all day long to welcome the delegates who are coming to attend the Finance Track's first Sustainable Finance Working Group meet, and they have been here singing, dancing their way to welcome all the delegates who have come to Guwahati to take part in the first meeting of Sustainable Finance Working Group. The confidence world has in India's leadership qualities that more than 100 delegates have descended to Guwahati, which is called the gateway to the northeastern part of India. With cameraman Sanjeev Sharma, Ravi Dhiman, DD News, Guwahati.
The G20 Education Working Group meeting in Chennai is going to conclude today. The meeting is deliberating on two important topics, that is learning in context of future of work and strengthening research and promoting innovation through richer collaboration. There will be remarks by Indonesia and Brazil, who are the co-chairs at the meeting, a discussion on the structure and key elements of the G20 education report and compendium of initiatives relating to the 4 priority areas pursued by the G20 members and guest countries is also on the agenda today. K. Sanjay Murthy, Secretary, will be addressing the concluding press briefing after the end of deliberations this evening. Up next, we get you some reactions of the G20 delegates from Chennai.
Well, education has always been a tool of cooperation between the nations. It has been always a bridge between people and nations to cooperate and to overcome challenges together. So I suppose such meetings as the G20 Educational Working Group meeting are very important.
20 countries, they will discuss a lot of great matters on education, and I hope after that we can continue discussing and evolving in this matter of such importance to us.
It's very, very important, I think, for all the member states of the G20 to begin to engage on educational issues. I think it's an important platform.
Education will always be important. This is the basic, this is the foundation of everything else, including the economy. Right, and if we talk about G20, we talk about economies, how to develop one country to another as a group, not only as G20, but how to make it as inclusive as possible. And education should be the basic of it.
The Indian presidency has selected very pertinent topics for this G20 meeting. We're talking about foundational literacy and numeracy. We're talking about technical and vocational education. We're also talking about skills development. All these are very important topics, I feel. And I think we're going to have a very fruitful discussion over 2 days. I'm looking forward to all that we're going to learn from one another.
It's very important. The topic for this morning's discussion was around foundational literacy and numeracy, which is very critical. The Indian government recognizes this as a policy priority, and I think it's important to raise that issue globally so people can come together to find solutions. Because it's really the foundation of all future learning.
This meeting is very important for Mexico. I'm from the Mexican delegation, and it is very important because it gives us the opportunity to exchange ideas, exchange best practices, and have a face-to-face meeting with our colleagues from the G20 countries, and that is very valuable for us.
And our correspondent Shama Mishra has sent this exclusive report from the World Heritage Site of Mahabalipuram, where G20 delegates saw the rich cultural heritage of India.
The historically significant temple town of Tamil Nadu, which is the Mahabalipuram, this is one of those places where the delegates of G20 Education Working Group are visiting, and if you can see, they are all interested about the facts of this UNESCO World Heritage, because if you see, this is all wonders and all unique. All this is made up of a one stone monolith, as we call it, and the delegates are taking all interest in getting to know India's, Tamil Nadu's, all these wonders. And they are also, if you see this part, it is a cave temple, so they are going inside and experiencing how it is to hear their own echo in a louder tone. So they're coming over here. Apart from this, they've already visited other places at the Mahabalipuram, and likewise they are being introduced to India's traditional and cultural other facets, which is the dancing, the folk dancing. And if you see, these dances are the dancers, the performers are placed at all spots where the delegates are actually, shaking a leg. They are trying their hands on these dances. They are all experiencing the Indian tradition. With camera person S. Shankar, this is Shama Mishra for DD India, Chennai.
And Shama also talked to the hotel staff in Chennai, where the delegates are staying. Let's listen in.
The year 2023 has been declared as the International Year of Millets. The G20 event or the G20 meeting of the Education Working Group is happening in Chennai, and you see all these offerings that has been put over here, all these delicacies that has been made by the the venue provider has been made by millets. Usage of millets has been done over here, so you can see all your snacks, all your desserts, all delicacies have been made from millets. We have Chef Sujan Mukherjee with us.
G20 event has been given us a great opportunity to showcasing our culinary arts, and this is the year of the millet and nothing more than that. We took the challenges and we have done a lot of research and experiments with the millets. If you see here, we have made croissants with which is a French croissant, which is always made with the refined flours, and the butters were tried with the millets. We have made a lot of cookies of different varieties. We have made different savories and curries with millets. We made breads with millet. We made sandwiches with millets. We have made it even in the lunchtime. If you take around, you will see that we made millet risottos. We have made millet curd rice and millet pancakes, millet dosas. So there is no end to this is too, and we are showcasing to the international clients. They're extremely happy. They're asking what about millets, and we're explaining about different varieties of millets available in India, and how you can produce it. It is very, very healthy. It is really good. It is indigenous. It is from our villages. It is from our farms, and we are only doing the recipes, just tweaking it a little bit and experimenting. As a chef, I'm extremely happy that I'm showcasing something which is very, very Indian, but representing in an international style.
All right. So we can see the smile and the delight on the chef's face that this is Indian, this is made in India, and we are representing it to the entire world. We also have a separate beverage section which have also the new and innovative ways of all those beverages, but it is made of millets. Let's go and find out what's special over there. So this is the area where I was talking about the beverages. So you can see rose milk, then you can see ragi malt. All this is made up with millets, usage of millets, and we have the director for food and beverages with us. What's different over here, and how have you made it? How have you taken up the challenge?
So when we got this prestigious event as an offer, we were very honored, and we decided that this time we will move from the commercial side of the beverages to the traditional side. And as you see, our inspiration is coming from the rural areas and the homes. When you see the rose milk, it sounds very common, but it is a very common drink which we use throughout India, especially in the summers. We have also added a touch of quinoa seeds in that, sabja seeds, which also gives you a cooling effect in the body. Moving on to ragi malt. Ragi malt is a traditional warm beverages which is made out of millet and a use of jaggery. So there is no use of processed sugar.
Apart from promoting the health benefits of millets, they have also done some innovation and also are moving towards more traditional ways and highlighting our rural India. With camera person S. Jayashankar, this is Shama Mishra for ED India, Chennai.
All right, Shama is joining us to get us live inputs from the G20 Education Working Group meeting that is currently on in Chennai. Shama, good morning. Very interesting inputs we just showed, which you sent us from Chennai. But today is the concluding day, the final day of the working group meeting on education. And one of the delegates did mention that education is a bridge of cooperation between the countries. Taking this forward, I would want you to elaborate for us how, or for that matter, summarize or evaluate for us those working sessions so far, given the fact that today is the last day at the meeting.
So Preeti, it was a 2-day working group meeting of education, and we also saw one day seminar on emphasis on digital means, and that was hosted by the IIT Madras, which is the prestigious institution of India. Rightly done, this entire G20 Education Working Group meeting is being held in Chennai because Chennai has a huge and a very powerful ground for this entire meeting. You've already listed out these priority areas which are going to be discussed today. 2 priority areas were discussed yesterday. So 4 priority areas, which includes tech-enabled learning, how do we do innovation and research, how do we go about future of work, and then the foundational literacy and numeracy. These are the 4 major topics that the entire delegations are going to discuss, and they are also discussing currently right now in the session. Apart from this, the digitalization, when we are talking about that, digital means plays a huge role, especially when we saw the pandemic hit us. The pandemic hit the entire world. Education was one sector, education was one field which had taken a big hit, a big setback, and most people suffered, and students and teachers also found out innovative ways to continue with the education. This particular meeting will deliberate on that as well, and how do we strengthen those infrastructure, how do we make it more inclusive. You are talking about in tech enabled learning, so how do we bring every family into it, how do we bring each child into it? Because the motto, the aim of this working group is, at least have basic knowledge, or at least have one child of, at least have a child that reaches to graduation, so that they are enabled, they are empowered. The working group meeting doesn't just stop there, because if you are having the education, you should also have the job. So future of work, when we are talking about that, skilling, we are talking about that. So those means, by you are having your education, now you have to work, now you have to be of use to the country, be of use to the world, so you have to have a job. So creating that atmosphere, creating that particular condition, that is also important, and that is being discussed over here. We are also, you have already mentioned about how it bridges the gap. So all the delegates that we've spoken to are in one tune, that this India's agendas or India's themes that we have chosen is right on track, and how India can help shape the solutions of the entire world's problem if we are talking about in education. We have also carried on the discussions from the earlier presidency, which was Indonesia, and currently in this also Indonesia and Brazil are co-chairing with us. So obviously we are taking their inputs, Brazil's inputs, and we are also providing our inputs to the entire members who are present over there, and also the invited countries and the institutions who play a huge role in the education sector. So if we are talking about India, India has Digital India, India has Skill India scheme, the new education policy which lays emphasis on making a child or making a student, making our youth more empowered and more, if we are to say, to use to the entire country, because we now are having more thrust on just education and no play or any other curriculum activities. But now the NEP enables a child to pursue their their likes, their hobbies, their conventional or modern ways of learning. And likewise, the teachers are also being enabled through various trainings and other means and efforts. So yes, a future is getting ready over here at this particular meeting, and once this meeting ends, since this is the first meeting, it will definitely help set the tone. It will help set shape the tone of the agenda which we are about to reach, and several other meetings of the education working group will happen in the future. But yes, this is the first meeting, so it will have a lot of impact on the other meetings to come.
All right, Shama, also when we talk of specifically education, then India has, also put forth the national education policy, which aims at the holistic development of children, and how this will, be a new benchmark in education, and it will further, strengthen and further empower the children and in the future the youth. Having said that, as India's G20 president, as India assumes G20 presidency, what is it that India has to offer to these delegates who are there, talking of innovative ways of education, or for that matter, the new empowering national education policy? What is it that as the G20 president, India is, offering? Talk more about India's participation at the forum.
Right, Preeti, we've already discussed about the 3 main pointers that
yes.
India is going to put forward through, which is the Skill India, which is the Digital India, and also the new education policy. Now we are talking about India's population. We already know India's population is diverse, and also when we are talking about the manpower, so manpower is also enriching. We've already heard the Union MOS, Dr. L. Murugan, he was there at the inaugural session, and he mentioned that India's manpower is really enriching, and this could be definitely used for not just the development of one country but the entire world, and India can offer that to the entire world. India can offer that to the member countries, the whole global south, and at that time, at this particular point of time when the national education policy has been introduced, it is, we are on the road of getting our youth, getting our students more empowered, more enriching, sort of, so that they can lead the way in the future as well. India's manpower goes to a lot of countries to work, and India has a huge population of expatriates in other countries as well, which are working in the development of those countries. So likewise, these countries, these member countries and institutions will also discuss on those facts, increasing the jobs over here, and how do you make a global youth. They can through the means of skilling, one skill could be used in other countries as well. So those all skills which is right now relevant, and not just the the top ones, but also which is basic and also required right now, which is currently very much needed right now. So because we saw in the exhibition, there was one exhibition at IIT Madras which is open to the public as well. They have various startups which are doing skilling and training in various sectors. In that one particular startup was giving you hands-on training through the VR, which we usually see, and then there's other skills like welding, AC repair. All these training are being given on VR, and 80% of those training is given on the VR. So you can sit at home, have that particular.
So education is just not textbook knowledge, but it extends to skilling as well.
Nitty-gritties of that.
All right, Shyama, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those inputs. We'll come back to you again during the day. So that was our correspondent Shyama Mishra telling us more about the Education Working Group meeting, which is being conducted in Chennai, and today is the concluding day. And from here, we turn focus to Guwahati. Ravi Diwan is joining us from Guwahati to spell out more on the Sustainable Financial Working Group meeting that is currently underway there. Ravi, good morning. Just a while back, we heard Union Ayush Minister talk of the priorities and the vision at this forum. I would want you to first explain to our viewers in simple layman terms, what is it that will be taken up in the agenda?
Well, Preeti, you see, Sustainable Finance Working Group is a recent group. It's a recent addition to the G20 format under the Finance Track. It was conceived by the Italian Presidency in 2021, and it is considered to be now the most important of all Finance Track initiatives, because this concerns the entire planet, the entire global family as a whole. And as we all know, the main motto of the G20 presidency, Indian presidency of G20, is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We are talking about the entire world as being one family and one vision for one future. So this, the deliberations that are taking place here in Guwahati for 2 days, today and tomorrow, are being seen as one of the most important initiatives taken by the G20 group, and over the next 2 days in 4 sessions, the delegates will deliberate upon a few things which are going to take the G20 family a step forward in ensuring sustainable development. As we all know, we are all witnessing events all across the globe which are directly linked to climate change, be it flooding or droughts in many areas of the world, and the call to fight climate change has been getting louder and shriller by each passing day. And this deliberation, this session or this working group is here to meet and find out what are the ways that the humanity can do, what are the initiatives that people can take, especially with G20 nations taking the lead, to ensure that there is a chance to fight the climate change, and there is a chance to have sustainable development while maintaining harmony with the nature. So the main events, or the main 3 topics that will be discussed threadbare is mechanism for adequate resources for climate finance. This is a key issue, especially with the global south, that they have to have finances to fight climate change. It is one of the most important issue that has been discussed in plenty of fora all across the globe, that the developing nations are
they are at the receiving end of climate change events. The climate change events affect them the most, and so the developed nations have to commit a minimum amount of finance so that they can also fight the climate change. This thing cannot be done, in isolation. This has to be a collective effort of the entire globe. So, committing the developed nations, particularly the Western countries, to finance the fight against climate change is one of the most important aspects that the developing nations have been demanding, and India has been spearheading their voice for past many years. Fighting climate change is at the core of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's climate and environment policies, the call for life. Another thing that they will be discussing is enabling finance for sustainable development goals, how the finance can be utilized to better use to achieve the sustainable development goals, and the capacity building of the ecosystem. Once we have the finance, we have to build that capacity of the entire ecosystem that can fight climate change, that can start a sort of cycle which ensures that we have adequate resources over many years and decades to come to continuously fight climate change and give humanity a chance. So these are the deliberations which will take place over 2 days here, and as the Union Minister for Ayush assured, and he was hopeful that there will be something concrete that will come out, and we'll come to know about the results tomorrow evening when there will be a press conference.
All right, Ravi, now G20 comprises of both the developed world and the developing countries. Now, the concerns of the developed world with regard to sustainable development are different from the concerns of the developing world. India, as the president of the G20, how does it plan to take forward the agenda? Because it is not binding for the countries to agree to a particular specific say point during these working group meetings. This is what these working group meetings are. A certain issue on which all the countries agree will be taken forward at the summit level meeting in December. Having said that, as the G20 president, how does India plan to take forward, or for that matter, I would want you to spell out more details on India's participation at this particular forum as the G20 president.
Well, India's G20 presidency, we can say, is a ray of hope for the global south, for the developing world, because India has been at the forefront of many challenges that confront the humankind now. During the COVID pandemic, the world saw the participation of India in easing the challenges of the pandemic by providing through Vaccine Maitri, providing vaccines to the developing world, providing vaccines to friendly nations. This is not an easy initiative by India. It helped many countries fight off the stiff challenge of COVID-19. So India has been taking leadership role in ensuring and assuring the developing world that their voice will be heard, and India will lend its weight to their voice. This G20 presidency, we can say, is a crowning moment for India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been leading the Indian voice at various international fora for past many years, and as we have seen over these past years, the weight given to India's voice has increased over the period of time. India has gained prominency in the international matters. The world listens when Prime Minister Narendra Modi talks about any topic, and they listen very carefully. So India has gained foothold with the developing world. India has made its voice heard in the developed world also. So the G20 presidency, we can say, has come at a very crucial moment. We are facing many challenges. Some of the challenges concern the COVID-19 pandemic. It is still not yet over. We are seeing many mutations of the virus still coming up across the globe. The most important and potent challenge for the world is the condition of the world economy. And many experts, many international organizations, including the Bretton Woods organizations, have said that world will likely fall into a recession in the next 12 months or so, and they have focused that the developed world will be at the forefront of the recessionary blues. So their economy will falter. We have seen the IMF has given the latest details, and India being the only economy which will grow at more than 6% in this financial year. India has outsmarted, outpaced all other major economies in the past, and it will continue to do in future. As the IMF said, India along with China will be the torchbearers for keeping global economy at very good pace in 2023-24. So the world is looking at India, and the world is looking at India with optimism, with hope. So G20 presidency comes at this point, and the entire developing world certainly believes that at the end, when there is a summit, a G20 summit in New Delhi, some concrete action will be taken to all the issues that are important to them, all the challenges that they are confronting, and there will be something concrete that comes out of it. So India's G20 presidency, I would say, is a great moment for India. It's a great opportunity for the developing world, and it's we can say it's a situation where the developed countries will also find that India's voice in some way or the other lends credence to their concerns also.
All right, Ravi, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those inputs. That was our correspondent Ravi Dhiman joining us from Guwahati, spelling out more details on the sessions that have begun there. The first Sustainable Financial Working Group meeting has begun in Guwahati. We'll keep you updated. Also, as we told you that India is hosting the prestigious G20 summit this year, the first Employment Working Group meeting will be held in Jodhpur today and will continue till 4th of February. The three-day Employment Working Group meeting will work on areas such as addressing global skill gaps and also provide a platform towards economy and social protection and sustainable financing of social security. International organizations like ILO, OECD and ISA, Indian institutions like Niti Aayog and MSDE, EPFO will also be sharing their views on the topics. Member countries from G20 are also invited to share their interventions on the key areas. Along with the key deliberations, a panel discussion has been organized on the sidelines to discuss on global skills and qualification harmonization, framework for common skill taxonomies on the first day itself. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval met the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken during his recent U.S. visit. U.S. Secretary of State further tweeted that they discussed strategic partnership of both the countries and the U.S. is expanding cooperation with India to address global challenges. In an exclusive interaction with DD India, Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has said that government continues reformative steps with important provisions favouring economically deprived people in this budget amidst various challenges. With regard to China, she said that she would like to see India emerging more self-reliant over the period of next 5 years.
All eyes are on India now because, we are the G20 president. But also, since the bright spot, the IMF has told us this, and we are targeting to be the third largest economy in the world. Some people wonder, about the race with China. Where do you see India versus China 5 years down?
I would see more India becoming Atmanirbhar, India producing many things for itself and also producing for the world. The pace at which we are growing will, with the sustained interest of people and also because of a responsive government. I would also think importantly that the stability which this government has given, because it had received a mandate which was so very clearly a strong mandate, the stability therefore, and also in treating tax matters not with impetuousness but with more level-headed approach, keeping stability and predictability in tax regime, we will definitely be one of those attractive economies.
In an exclusive conversation with DD India and its correspondent Shubhendu Ghosh, Union Minister for Commerce and Industry and Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution and Textiles, Piyush Goyal, enumerated how the Union Budget 2023 fulfills the multifaceted goals of India's growth story. He also talked about Prime Minister Modi's economic vision, promotion of inclusive development, exports, innovation and much more.
Namaskar, I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. The Union Budget for 2023-24 has been presented. It presents a vision for the post-pandemic growth story of India, and to talk about it, we have with us Union Minister Piyush Goyal. Welcome, sir, to DD India. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi talks about this budget as one laying the foundation for Amrit Kal. How do you see it? What are your key takeaways of the budget?
First of all, the budget is very holistic in its vision. It encompasses a very vast canvas, and more importantly, you will find that one is linked to the other. And I think the whole budget, if you will see, has something in it for 140 crore people. It addresses the needs of every section of society.
How do you see the budget fulfilling the vision of inclusive growth? The budget speech did mention the manner in which Pradhan Mantri Ann Kalyan Yojana, Garib Ann Kalyan Yojana has helped some 80 crore people in the country in the past couple of years. How is that vision taken forward now?
Of course, during the period of COVID, when people were stressed and there was economic distress, we launched the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana. 80 crore people for 28 months at a cost of nearly 4 lakh crores, getting food grain over and above what they were already getting under the food security program, was something which has actually been recognized the world over.
Right. And sir, in a positive note, leaving the pandemic, the recovery from the pandemic behind, what kind of impetus opportunities does the budget now offer to the private sector, to the industry, to sort of accelerate and participate in the growth story of the country?
Well, I think a lot of steps have already been taken, announced, which will continue to happen, like the various industrial parks that have been created, textile parks, PM Mitra, PLI schemes, 1,97,000 crores, semiconductor manufacturing, 76,000 crores, ease of doing business, national single window plan. I mean, I can just go on and on about the various efforts to encourage economic activity.
But for this budget to take it forward?
This budget, in a way, continues that momentum in different ways.
When we read the budget document, we also see the manner in which it puts innovation, technology-driven governance, administration at the heart of India's growth story. There is focus on AI, 5G, agri-tech, as you mentioned earlier. How is this focus being taken ahead in the 21st century?
The very fact that India today is the leader in digital financial payments is testimony to the fast adoption of technology and how digitalization of the economy has given us very good returns. So I think India has demonstrated to the world the agility of our young boys and girls and our people to adopt technologies.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us on DD India.
Thank you. Lovely talking to you.
Sri Lanka has raised the price of octane 92 petrol by 30 rupees from 370 to 400 rupees per litre with effect from today. The state-run fuel retailer Ceylon Petroleum Corporation said the prices of all other fuels remain unchanged. Lanka IOC, a subsidiary of Indian Oil Corporation and the only competitor of CPC, also raised the price of octane 92 by the same margin. The government has ruled out reduction in the new tax rates. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka has been facing inflationary pressure over the last 9 months. Inflation in the island had hit a high of 73% in September last year and had marginally eased to 54% in January this year. Today is World Wetlands Day. In a tweet, the UN said, and I quote, "Conserving and restoring wetlands help protect biodiversity and is key for addressing the climate crisis." NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, during his visit to Japan, warned that China was substantially building up its military and trying to assert its power in the region. He further said that even though China was not an adversary, but it is necessary to expose threats posed by China on their security, values and interests. Stoltenberg and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida pledged to strengthen ties in a meeting the previous day, saying Russia's attack on Ukraine and its growing military cooperation with China had created the most tense security environment since World War II.
Beijing is substantially building up its military forces, including nuclear weapons, without any transparency. It is attempting to assert control over the South China Sea and threatening Taiwan, trying to take control of critical infrastructure, including in NATO countries. Moscow and Beijing are deepening their strategic partnership. The two countries train and operate more together militarily, conducting joint naval and air patrols also in the vicinity of Japan. Their economic cooperation is increasing, and China has not condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz called the proposal of EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen to counter the US Inflation Reduction Act a step in the right direction on Wednesday. While EU countries welcome the US commitment to energy transition, they fear the IRA's $369 billion of subsidies for electric vehicles and other clean technologies could put companies based in Europe at a disadvantage. The European Commission proposed a plan on Wednesday to try to ensure Europe can compete with the US as a manufacturing hub for green products like electric vehicles and reduce its dependence on China.
For me, the debate on the Inflation Reduction Act is also incentive for the Europeans to keep reviewing how we can further improve the conditions for investment here at home. This includes making European subsidy law even more agile and flexible for a limited period of time, so that investors know at the early stage what support they can expect. EU Commissioner President Ursula von der Leyen has made important proposals in this regard, all of which go in the right direction.
Russia, continuing with its deadly strikes in Ukraine, has now taken into its radar an apartment building in the eastern Ukrainian city of Kramatorsk late on Wednesday. A video footage showed the building turned down into debris with emergency crew on the site. According to the regional governor, Pavlo Kirilenko, at least 2 people were killed and 7 were injured. Reportedly, the rescue operation is underway and the emergency services on the site are ongoing. Local authorities initially said that Russia had fired a rocket, but the police force later said that an Iskander-K tactical missile had struck at 9:45 p.m. local time. However, Moscow has denied the strike responsibility, saying the missile was Ukrainian. As the conflict between Russia and Ukraine continues, in a fresh address, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the situation on the front lines in eastern Ukraine has become tougher as Russian forces step up the offensive. The Ukrainian president also said that he would make as many personnel changes as necessary to fight corruption and stressed the need for the defense ministry to be honest.
Of course, today I held several quick meetings with our military. A definite increase has been noted in the offensive operations of the occupiers on the front in the east of our country. The situation has become tougher. I'm grateful to all our soldiers who are ready for this and who demonstrate the resilience that Ukraine needs. We have stood firm all this time, from February to February. The enemy is trying to achieve at least something now to show that Russia has some chances on the anniversary of the invasion. In such circumstances, we all have to be specially united, specially focused on state interests, and as a result, specially resilient. I believe we will succeed.
German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius visited a tank battalion in the western town of Augustdorf on Wednesday that was chosen to supply 14 of its Leopard 2 tanks to Kiev. During the visit, he said that Germany needs to order new Leopard tanks quickly to replace those going to Ukraine, adding that he did not care where the money came from. Germany is under pressure to supply its Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine to fight the ongoing war. Since the war began, the European allies have sent hundreds of modernized tanks to Ukraine. However, Ukraine has requested more advanced military equipment to gain an advantage over Russia. Pistorius aims to accelerate arms procurement and ramp up ammunition supplies in the long term after almost a year of arms donations to Ukraine has depleted German military stocks. Even before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Germany was 20 billion euros short of reaching NATO's target for ammunition stockpiling.
For me, the crucial fact is that we have to order new tanks, not in a year, but swiftly so that the production can begin and we can plan when we will have what number of new Leopards then. It is essential that we can provide them quickly. We will have to talk about that now. The same applies to the ammunition supply and constant resupply, and also to the questions of howitzers and other armored vehicles. We have to create the prerequisites now to get this order out as quickly as possible so that the industry can start production.
Meanwhile, the UK Defence Minister Ben Wallace also stressed on Ukraine's armour and tanks requirement. He said that armour and tank supplies are Ukraine's need of the hour. Adding further, he also claimed that his country was focused on supplying Ukraine with the arm aid it needed. However, on the contrary, he also said that UK has not made a solid decision not to send its fighter jets to Ukraine, but does not think it is the right approach at the moment. On Tuesday, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's spokesperson said that it would not be practical to send jets to Ukraine because it would take months to learn to fly them. Wallace also said that Britain's jets were very complex and might not be applicable in Ukraine.
What they need right now is armour and tanks, and that's what we not only led from the front with the First Nation, but also sought to engineer a greater support. And now we've unlocked that. And a few weeks ago, they needed desperately air defence. Again, we were at the forefront in helping them do that, and now helping them deliver an effective plan to protect the critical infrastructure. I think we have to be pretty sure that that is going to be the next battle-winning requirement. But for now, I think we are focused on the tanks, the land battle, and the ability. And you know, aircraft are there to deliver two things: air defence, but also surface strike. Let's deal with capabilities one step at a time, as is requirement. What's going to move on this conflict this year is going to be the ability for the Ukrainians to deploy Western armour against Russia. Both Russia and Ukraine are finding it hard to fly their planes, partly because of the anti-air defences that we have donated.
During his visit to Washington, former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson called on the US to supply more arms to Ukraine. In a statement, he asserted that it was time to give Kiev the tool, including F-16 aircrafts, to reclaim the land taken in control by Russia amid the ongoing war. He urged the world leaders to counter their initial resistance to supplying Ukraine with increasingly sophisticated defense systems. Furthermore, he also stressed and dismissed UK Defense Minister's claims that the Ukrainians would be unable to fly sophisticated US planes, saying Ukraine had already shown their ability to use modern NATO technology. The former UK Prime Minister also said that giving Ukraine planes is a humane thing to do.
I think the answer to that is look at what's happened. Every time we come to a fork in the road and we were asked to make a choice about sending some new type of weaponry to Ukraine to help them, we begin by saying no, and we begin by saying this is an escalation, this is a provocation, we mustn't do this. And I implore you now to follow the logic of what you are all doing and give the Ukrainians the tools to finish the job. Give them the deep fire artillery systems, give them the tanks, give them the planes, because they have a plan. They know what they need to do, and my God, they've shown they have the skill and the bravery to do it.
The relatives of Tyre Nichols, who was subjected to police brutality across the United States, came to the funeral in a Memphis church on Wednesday to offer comfort to the family of the 29-year-old who was fatally beaten by officers last month. Speaking over a flower-bedecked casket at the Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church, preachers recalled a young man who loved photography and skateboarding and demanded justice for Nichols. Civil rights leaders and family members also called for an end to recurring police violence against Afro-Americans. They addressed a congregation that included relatives of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, two African Americans whose deaths at the hands of police sparked protests in 2020. Myanmar's National Defence and Security Council has agreed to extend the country's state of emergency by 6 months and have decided to delay the elections which the junta had pledged to hold by August. According to a state broadcaster, junta chief Min Aung Hlaing's request to prolong the state of emergency was declared when the generals toppled Aung San Suu Kyi's government in February 2021, and that was granted. The state of emergency was due to expire at the end of January, but on Tuesday, the junta's tagged National Defence and Security Council met to discuss the state of the nation and also concluded that it has not returned to normalcy yet. The US Fed Reserve raised its target interest rate by 0.25 percentage point on Wednesday and yet continued to promise ongoing increase in borrowing costs as part of its still unresolved battle against inflation. While briefing the media, Fed Chair Jerome Powell blamed Russia-Ukraine conflict and COVID pandemic to be the factor contributing to elevated global uncertainty. Still, the Fed said the US economy was enjoying modest growth and robust job gains, with policymakers still highly attentive to inflation risks. Meanwhile, Powell insisted that the rate cuts are not in the offing and took pains to walk what has become an increasingly fine line between the flow of data showing inflation in steady decline with the need to keep the public and investors attuned to the fact that interest rates will continue rising. On to sports now. India demolished New Zealand by 168 runs in the deciding third and final T20 International at Ahmedabad. Chasing the target of 235, the visitors were bundled out for a mere score of 66 runs in 12.1 overs. Darren Mitchell was the highest scorer for New Zealand with 35 runs. In women's cricket, India will take on South Africa in the finals of the Tri-Series in East London today. The third team in the Tri-Series is West Indies. Of the 4 matches that Indian women played in the series so far, they won 3, while there was no result for 1 match. The match will start at 6:30 p.m. Indian time. That's it in this edition of News on the Hour this morning. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.